Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Get ready for a woozy. Before I introduce you to, I think the word is doozy, but introduce you to our guest. Here's a quote just for this episode. Conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, our guest, a regular staple on the show, a great friend of the Culture Matters podcast, contributor to the annual pilgrimage, the New Year's Eve Jubilee on New Year's Eve, a mentor, a leader, a visionary in a great sense, from napkin to unbelievable success for so many people, including yours truly. The real Brian Hess is here to talk about not only uh, wins for 2025, it's been a long year, but the Top Contractor School recap, recent event, unbelievable event. If you're listening to this show regularly and you're not there, it's time that you look in the mirror and ask yourself why. Brian, thanks for coming on the show. I'm really excited about this conversation. Been
Yeah,
thinking a lot about it.
I was just thinking like if we could get that intro every morning, like right around, 8:40, be a great way to start my day every day, you know. It's a little weighty though, feel the weight of that a little bit, all the things that you're responsible for.
Man, I mean, what was it like sitting out in front of the audience of, 100 or so, not just contractors, but leaders of families, leaders of their employees, the indirect families associated to their companies, leaders in their community, uh, as it relates to the Top Contractor School retreat, which just happened here uh, in the last few weeks. I think the last few weeks feels like what, a week ago, a week and a half, 10 days. What
Yeah.
was it like? What is going through your mind when you're sitting there, uh, you know, whether it's speaking in front of that group or your group or interviewing, because you've interviewed some unbelievable people, numerous. What's it like looking out at the crowd?
Yeah, I said this there, man. Every time I walk into that retreat, I get a similar feeling, Friday night we get everybody together and we have everybody kind of raise their hands who's new here, who's at their first retreat. And every time, man, it feels like it's like the coolest feeling in the world to walk through a vision, to be able to walk through a dream that's becoming reality. And I think we're far from where we want to be as far as like, size and impact and things like that. But that the impact that we have made as a community on a lot of people in that room is significant. And I think, it was wild this time, I went back to my room after Saturday and my wife was there. I was like just exhausted and we got dinner in an hour and a half or whatever. So I was like, I'm gonna try to close my eyes for like 30 minutes and that didn't work very well because my mind's just, going 100 miles an hour. And she asked me that question, like, what was that like, to sit up there with somebody that you've admired for so long? And I said it's surreal. Like I gotta watch it back because I don't, you're just in the moment so much that you don't really realize like everything that's happening. And you remember a few things, but as a whole, like you want to watch the game film back, if you will. And she goes, "Do you remember when you told me that you would like we were looking at YouTube and like all the people that we study and
Wow.
that have helped us along the way, mentors and the two that she mentioned were our last two speakers, so Ed Milet and Jordan Peterson. And she said like
Wow.
years ago that I said to her like I'm going to interview them someday, and I don't remember saying that. I don't remember but obviously speaking that into existence is pretty crazy. And I think for me, man, I think the most full that I felt was when everyone started sharing their pictures of, that everyone got the opportunity to take a picture with Dr. Peterson. And many of those people shared, kind of the impact or something about the weekend or something about something that he said or, something they took away that like was life changing or altering for them. And, that's the purpose of events, right? It's like, You can do a lot of things like this over a podcast or a Zoom or whatever it may be. And funny enough, Jay and I are in the same building, but just in different rooms, doing this podcast. But the purpose of
That's
events
awesome.
is simple. It's to get people together in the same room. And somebody said something to me the other day about like, oh, Lori, about Vision Day. Lori said to me, like, man, I wish I could watch the recording. And I said, it's not the same. You got to be there. Like, you got to be there in person. And, so for me, man, it's really watching the journeys of all of those people. Ryan Austin sent me something a few days before the retreat that was like the two of us in Nashville years ago,
Wow.
hanging out with a text about, just the journey that we've been on together. And, you know, collectively, it's so interesting to look at that room and like, map back like all the connections and how they were made and like, and then walk those back and how those people, many of the people in that room, you know, their best friends are part of that, that group of people. And like they didn't know them before that, right? And so, I think that's, the
Mm.
most powerful thing for me is watching that unfold. It's like, especially when new people come into the group, come into the family and you see them start to work their way around and like make new connections and then make decisions in their business and kind of put a stake in the ground of what they're going to do. And then watching that happen is crazy. I mean, it's it's indescribable.
Why was relentless vision the mantra?
So 2024 was a tough year for a lot of people, right? Especially in the construction space, it was harder to get the same result. And so throughout that year, I kept asking myself, like, what does it take? What's it going to take for people to be successful this year? And then what's it going to take for us to carry that into 2025? And I realized that like the people that had the best years last year, they had a relentless, unshakable vision, where, that bump in the road of 2024 or, the setbacks that people felt, or maybe not achieving the goals that they set out to achieve, or it taking much more effort to get that same result. Dude, the only people that withstood that test were the people that had relentless vision. Like nothing was going to stop them. The definition that I use or description that I use sometimes is like, who are you as a leader? Are you the leader that's, communicating the vision, but not in a way that's, relentless. And what does relentless vision mean? Like, dude, I'll chew through a damn chain if that's what it takes for me to get the result. You're not going to stop me. And to me, it's that confidence of like, I'm willing to put this on my shoulders as a leader to the extent that I need to in order to inspire and motivate and recast the vision to those around me to be able to get the result. And that word relentless, when you look it up, it's a very powerful word. It's like, what is it? What is it that you're going to be? Are you going to cave under pressure? And are you, here's another way you could take this conversation. Are you willing to sell your dream for a cost? Are you willing to sell your vision for a price? Because it's too much to bear in the moment. Like I can't take this. So I'm gonna sell my business, or I'm gonna sell my vision, or I'm gonna sell my people, because as a leader, I can't take the heat.
Do, do you remember what doctor said about as it related to the vision? Is if they're losing the relentlessness, it's not developed enough.
Oh yeah, he said if you do not have relentless vision, then your vision is not developed enough yet. Of course it should be relentless, because when your vision is developed, nothing will stop you. I believe the quote, the quote from, is it is it Kierkegaard? A man with enough why? A man with a strong
Oh,
enough
oh
why?
yeah,
Is that
he was
Kierkegaard?
Nietzsche. Well, they're
Nietzsche.
cousins and not, no, I don't mean that literally. They're close. They're closely
Yeah.
tied
So,
together.
but a man with a strong
Yeah.
enough why can withstand anyhow.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. It's like, and you were back there when Dr. Peterson asked, why we chose him. And I said to him, like, I haven't followed anybody who has been through as much as he has and never wavered on his vision. I haven't studied anyone who is alive today that has been ridiculed, attacked, uh, put through, stripped of, their license of doing what they've done their whole life. People just going crazy attacking this individual, and never has he wavered. And so to me, that was the perfect person for uh, relentless vision. He
Wow.
has it. He defines it. And and we were right in our assumption that that would be the right fit, because he went out and demonstrated what that looked like. And during the interview that we did, I think he demonstrated that even more. It was like, the last question was a definition of that. It was like, I asked him about Peterson Academy, what drove him to start Peterson Academy. And do you remember his response?
Revenge.
Revenge.
Yeah, like that was intense. What were you thinking in that moment?
Honesty. Like that,
Wow.
that's just an honest and transparent answer. It's like, because, the other thing that he said is like, those people thought that I needed them. And, when your vision is relentless and when you have something that you want to accomplish that's bigger than yourself, that's where relentless vision is found. It's like, well,
Wow.
yeah, I can easily let myself down. That's a pretty simple task. Nobody's going to know about that other than me. But when it comes to, if I make you a promise and I don't deliver on it, well, that sucks, right? That
Mm,
doesn't feel very good. And, for him,
wow.
his I mean, the man wrote every day, 3 hours a day for 15 years to write a book that most people won't even read because it's too intense. So, like, think about, what type of mission that guy is on. It's so much greater than himself. And, so I think all of us can relate to that. There's something that we want to do that has very little to do with us and a lot to do with fulfilling something that's inside of us of serving others. And so, when you have that, there's a whole lot that's going to stop you.
I
Other
was trying
than
to find, go
those
ahead, go ahead.
momentary times of man, this is really hard, where, uh I believe most of the business owners that sell their businesses, they just get weak in a moment, and somebody emails them with a big number or offer in that moment, and then they say like, yeah, that's a good idea, and then they convince themselves it's a good idea, and then it's too late to turn back. But ultimately, if the vision is big enough, those things look less attractive, and so they're less likely to work.
I was trying to find how many copies of Maps of Meaning have sold, and I couldn't do a quick search. But I do recall a lecture from, or it was a lecture, it was a question answered, and I think Doctor was sharing how his students thought up to the, in the late 90s when it was released, like they all thought it was going to be this huge, huge deal. And then it was published and really nothing, like whispers. If you look at the early lectures of him in like the mid 2000s, he uses an example a lot of like success rate, and how like like a book, like how rare it is for a book to sell 10,000 copies. And I always take that as like, maybe if I'm him, then he's, comprehending the fact that his no one bought his book, the first book. Now, but I want your thoughts on this, because I just did a quick Google search, and today it says that Maps of Meaning has sold millions of copies. Now, I'm not sure if it's either wrapped up in his other book sales, or if, maybe today people actually have bought it, whether they read it or not, the textbook, but they have, because now he's like a known public figure. But in the very beginning, I know the fact was that almost no one bought it. The students thought it was going to be this big thing, this big breakthrough, and
Well,
nothing. And
well,
in fact, I
that
recall coming across it early in my career and saying that looks like an interesting title, and just going to the next book. I didn't, even as a bibliophile myself, like not buying the book, or I was like, oh, it looks like it was like $70 back in the day. I'm talking 10 years ago, because it's under the culture section. It was like $70. Who wants to buy a $70? You don't even know
I
what it
do.
is.
I buy every expensive book. Maybe I'm a sucker. Somebody out there can write one and just charge a lot of money. But I think like, man, I'm gonna learn something most people won't because they won't pay the $70. And then when it comes to nobody buying it, maybe those first 1,000 videos on your YouTube channel are gonna go viral one day. That's what I think. It's not, dude, listen, it's not about, you said something to me that day when I asked you about those videos. You said I didn't do them for other people. I did them for me. And I believe that's the answer he would give if you asked him that question. Like, how did you feel when Maps of Meaning, didn't take off? And he would say, I didn't do it to sell books. Or it wouldn't, if he did it to sell books, he would have quit after like, the first 6 months of 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? It's like, that's not the purpose. The purpose is the process.
Yeah, shout out to John Cole for that one.
It's
Purpose is the process. Uh, yeah.
it's who are
That's
you
who I thought of.
becoming, man? Like if you
Yeah.
didn't do those videos, you wouldn't be you. And so like, at the end of the day, it's like you just did videos instead of locking yourself in a room for 3 hours a day. But it's the same thing. It's like, when we go searching in the depths of who we are, we might find something great. And that's, to me, like that's the definition of it. Most people aren't willing to dig that far. Most
Well,
people
just
aren't willing to be honest enough with themselves to dig that far to figure it out because it's terrible.
I'm gonna
It's
sound like a sponsor of and I'm a proud non-sponsor, but I actually testimony Audible was 3 hours a day for 10 years until I'm proud to say Peterson Academy has completely taken my market share for Audible. Like I don't even log into Audible
it's
anymore.
resolved your Audible addiction.
Peterson Academy has replaced Audible for in my current self-development, to the point where, like, if you're listening to Audible, you've let me down. No new badges, no new titles. No new gamification. You're talking about
It's the definition of not rewarding the top performers.
almost 11,600 hours of Audible listening in 10 years, completely replaced by Peterson Academy. I mean, and I'm proud to say it. I mean, I'm not. What a lesson in that. But I'm saying, when it comes to doing something, being consistent with something for hours a day, that was the audio library that has now been replaced by this unbelievably helpful online college that this
And I
same
just want to
person
go on the
presents.
record. I can confirm that Jay Duran does not get any compensation from Peterson Academy. He does not. I know everyone's going to
Yeah,
think you do.
zero, zero. Yeah,
Zero.
no, it's crazy. So many people keep saying to me, like, "Are you getting an override for this?" Because a lot of people have bought the university from
Well, anybody that would
talking.
listen to your pitch would believe for sure instantly that you're on the staff. You're on the
You think so? Well,
team.
that makes me feel good about
I mean, I
myself, because
question
I'm
it, and I know
passionate.
you're not.
So what I'd like to know is, while we have our limited time here, is what is Top Contractor School, for those that have absolutely no clue what we've been talking about, and yeah, what is it, and who's it not for?
Top Contractor School is a community of contractors that, you know, they absolutely come together to expand and scale each other's businesses. It's an educational platform. We have calls every week. We have a constantly growing offering of different things that members get. We've got a fitness advisor. We've got adventures where we go hike the Grand Canyon, Zion National Park, Glacier National Park. We've got all kinds of things that surround it, but the core of it is to connect with other contractors, like-minded, like-hearted contractors that are focused on improving in every aspect of their lives. And, the results of that are almost unbelievable. Like, for you to really grasp the concept of what the results have been over the last, 6+ years of these people being together, you'd have to talk to someone who's been part of it. Somebody like Keith Calloway or Travis Stokes or Bill Ryman. And by the way, some of these people are already high performing individuals when they become part of it. Some of them, have businesses that they're looking to really scale, and they're smaller and everything in between. But the lives that have been transformed as a result of this, both the owners of these companies and leaders of these companies and the people that work for them, has been one of the greatest things that I've ever witnessed in my life. It's truly like, it's the closest thing that I've ever experienced to having, a family of my own. It's like, past my own children being born, like watching these people transform their lives and businesses has been incredible. And they do it through, networking with each other, figuring out what's working in somebody else's business. Some of the lessons that we teach, we've got the sales mentorship program coming up here again in March. Those things help people move their businesses forward. But the most important part of it is what they get from each other. We've got an app where everybody comes together and shares their thoughts and asks questions and gets answers to that. Who is it not for? People that aren't really looking to grow their businesses. I mean, because there are people like that out there. We don't, come across a lot of them because most of the people, I think, understand what we're trying to do. But there are people that are just comfortable. If it's a $5 million business and that's kind of what they want to do, they want to run their $5 million business and have, a great lifestyle, and that's what they want. It's probably not for them. It may not be for somebody who's looking to exit their business very shortly, because what we do, we're not get rich quick kind of strategy people. It's building something that's sustainable for scaling over a long period of time. And you see those results. You see the exponential results, like $3.8 million to $25 million in revenue over a period of years, just a few years, right? And so, but it takes years to be able to build these systems and processes properly. You can get quick results in different areas, but as a whole, if you want a holistic approach to revolutionizing your business, that's what this group does for each other. And we try to do our best as the leaders of that to lead people in the right direction, to plant the seeds through the weekly calls that get people thinking about what it is that they need next in order to get to the next level. And we've got, business owners in there that are, just over $1 million, and we've got them all the way up to approaching 9 figures, right? So, and everything in between. And there, we've got luxury home builders, steel erection companies, flooring people, electricians, roofers, general contractors, you name it, everything in between, and plenty of paving guys, because that's what we do, right? But it is really a group for people that are looking to get more out of business and people that are looking to not be alone in that journey anymore. And, that is what we see a lot in construction, people that work really hard, but they feel like they've got a job with a tax ID number. They just can't get away from doing the work themselves or being the person that wears 10 different hats. And we've been able to successfully guide people through that process of, taking those 10 hats off, finding the people to build out the organizational chart to give them the freedom they were pursuing in the first place when they became an entrepreneur.
Why would you challenge our listeners to participate in a physical retreat?
There is nothing that will ever take the place of being in person with people that you connect with. And listen, you might come to a retreat and figure out you don't connect with it. I don't think that will happen, but you could, right? But the ultimate test is being amongst people where you can look them in the eye, shake their hand, have real conversations with them, tell them your problems, and feel the energy coming back from them that they either know or don't know how to solve it. You know, there's far too much in today's world of, you know, people being online telling you what they can do for your business, but they're not willing to come to your office. They're not willing to, you know, put the time in to actually help you. They just want to sell you a course or sell you something that, you know, seems like a get rich quick type of scheme. And, you know, maybe in the desperation of your journey, you might sign up for that. But when you're in person, you can get a real feel for how much people care, and nothing will ever replace that for me. Like, you know, if I really want to test what I believe about something, I need to go there and be in person with people so that I can, you know, touch it and feel it and have real conversations with real people.
Why bring in speakers? What's the value of having like
Yeah,
external authorities? What does that do for a community in your view?
I
Why
think
is that
for us,
valuable?
there's two ways that I look at that. Number one, it's the people who have believed in us since the very beginning. You know, this is a big vision of, you know, transforming the construction industry one company at a time. And those people that believed in us in the beginning, I want to reward them with great experiences and things that they can remember, and things, you know, and speakers that can make an impact that'll shift somebody. It'll shift everything in them in the right direction. Um, that is the main purpose of it, right? The speakers are designed to meet the needs of the group at that moment in time. It's why Dr. Peterson was perfect for relentless vision and perfect for the timing. You know, not to be political, but the country is, you know, transforming also. And so, you know, when we decided on Dr. Peterson, we, you know, there was an election coming up, there's a new book being released, and then our event was coming. And so, you know, my belief was that those things would go the way that they actually did go, and that the end result of that would be, you know, people watching somebody who stood for something and being an example of what exactly they needed to do in that moment in time for their own businesses, their families, and the people around them. And so, you know, the purpose of that is to, you know, put that person in front of them that can shift things in their lives. And the other purpose is to give back to those people and give a gift to those people that believed in us from the beginning, that an experience that they'll never forget.
Someone that wants to connect with you and get involved in the Top Contractor School, fastest way to apply?
I mean, you could go to topcontractorschool.com, or you can shoot me a DM on Instagram at real Brian Hess. And, you know, I'll get you into contact with the right people and point you in the right direction to have a conversation with our team and see if it's a good fit for you.
Something now that I thought about earlier one day, I want your thoughts on this, was when you were talking about doctors, the things he'd been through in the last few years, you know, all these speaker, you know, the speakers that we see, that we get value from, they clearly, they know a lot, they've accomplished a lot most of the time. That's why they're valuable.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them are literally in the midst of being challenged by what they're talking about? And just, that's something that came in my mind earlier that I thought was interesting to kick around. It's like almost
Yeah, it's
taken
it.
for granted. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I wrote, like, I hope someday, you know, write a lot more books, but like, and that there's value to that, but you know, I'm going on a stage, or I've got something to share, some wisdom I've collected throughout, and there's so much power in that. If you look at this person's life, that they've kind of been through the rigmarole to the point where sometimes I get apprehensive. Do I want to talk about that specific person to someone? Because like I feel like sometimes people that don't know this Peterson actually might just like heard the news clippings, and then I have to explain my experience with his work. It's like, man, that's got to be a lot to go through throughout your life. Where like I'm not even. Sometimes I have apprehension. It was like earlier with a call with you know uh, an advisor was like, "Oh, have you heard of Peterson?" And I was like, in my tone, I was like, you know, am I gonna have to like overcome some objections here?
Well, I think there's two different types of speakers. there's the speaker that you can go see this year that's going to tell you a story. And you could go back 4 years later and it's going to be the same story because they haven't changed. Because they've,
Good point.
they have become a professional speaker and a professional marketer, not a professional at whatever it is that they do. And while those people are, fair enough to listen to, and it doesn't mean you can't get anything out of it. I have chosen to, follow people who are in the trenches, who are, trying to make a difference today. And there's not much that's the same a year from now as it is today. And I enjoy that. I enjoy watching that journey for other people. You mentioned, when Dr. Peterson wrote Maps of Meaning. I mean, that's a 20 something year long journey of, something not selling. And now all of a sudden the same book is, selling like crazy because he had the vision and the relentless work ethic to be able to go after it and not stop. And so, I would challenge the listeners and viewers to say, like, who are you taking advice from? And is it the same story that they've been telling for years? Because, if you're around people that talk about, how great it was back in high school or college, those aren't people doing new things, or they'd be talking about what they're doing right now. And so, that's a challenge for all of you, is to figure out, like, who are you taking advice from? Are those people the right people? Do they align with your values, your vision, your principles? And, should you continue following them if they're still talking about the same thing, how many years later? And, for me, that answer is clear, that, I want people who are growing and trying to do new things and trying to do big things. And I'm going to follow those people that have those same values and the same vision and the same principles that I do.
If you're listening to this podcast, go listen to the other 24 episodes that were done together on the Culture Matters podcast. Just type in the Culture Matters podcast, Brian Hess, and you're going to see them. Man, follow the Brian Hess Show every day. You'll see episodes. They're awesome. I always love going on the show. It's always a blast. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks for coming back, my friend.
My pleasure.